So thanks a lot for making time. Before we delve into the future of leadership, can you share your own journey? Where are you from and where did you grow up?
So I'm born in Johannesburg. I grew up in Durban, and I wanted to become a farmer, but I wanted to to grow pawpaws out of season. That was my thing. I wanted to do sort of hothouse kind of farming, and I went to the University of Pietermaritzburg. Just started off a BSc Agriculture,
Right.
and then realized that I didn't want to do that, and changed to a BCom. I took a while to finish that. I was having too much of a good time, I think, and then did my honors and started a master's. I didn't complete my master's, and then went into the family business, and for my parents made umbrellas, beach umbrellas, rain umbrellas, outdoor furniture, and I grew up with sort of a knowledge that I would take over that business at some point, But for reasons I won't go into, I ended up leaving that business and decided to start on my own without any assistance. And went to work for a friend of mine who had a retail clothing store.
Right.
And it was a hand-me-down from grandfather to father to him. 3 generations, and the business was shrinking. They were independents fighting the chains, and the independents couldn't provide the credit that the chains were providing.
Yeah.
And I came there sort of wet behind the ears, thinking that I knew everything about business, and tried to turn this business around. And I tried one thing and it didn't work, and I tried another thing and it didn't work, and eventually I came up with a promotion for the business, which was hugely successful and got into the newspaper. And
What kind of promotion was that?
it was a promotion. Effectively, what I did was emptied out the shop window completely, which was in those years. I mean, no one did that. Every window had a mannequin in it with clothing and pricing, and my view was that I didn't want to be the same as everyone else. So rather, when they walk past, they ask the question in their mind, why is the shop window open? And once they do that, I can engage them. And we handed out a brochure which effectively said to them, a little A6 pamphlet which effectively said to them, bring in any pair of old shoes and we'll give you a voucher to the value of 20 Rand to spend at Jasper's. The name of the company was Jasper's. And I thought it was going to be a massive success on day one. And on day one, we waited, and eventually at 11 o'clock, the security guard came in with a pair of old shoes, and we gave him a voucher to the value of 20 Rand. And he bought a tie for 74 Rand. He paid 54 Rand for it. And we threw that pair of shoes in the window. Now people stopped asking what it was. Now, today I know what that is. I was disrupting them, right? It's disruption, right?
Absolutely.
They were walking past and saying this is different. But in those days, I just worked out we had to do something very different. And that eventually we had 5,000 pairs of shoes, and I donated them to charity to get more PR. And I was 20. I was in my early 20s at the time.
Did you have a mountain of shoes in the window?
Yeah.
Okay.
5,000. They were filled up 2 windows full of shoes. And I mean, we had to empty it, I think, 2 or 3 times. But eventually it was, we had shoes come, people come in packets of shoes. And the business took off, and I got into the paper. And then a dollar billionaire saw the article in the paper. Sent a driver to pick me up, and asked me a whole bunch of questions and offered to back me.
Right. A local millionaire.
Yeah,
from Durban.
At the time. Yeah, he's now an international guy, but yeah, definitely he was local, Durbanite. And I didn't know who he was, and I didn't believe him. Like, who does that? Like, so 2 weeks later, he calls me up again and said, "What are you still doing there?" And then I started a business called the New York Sausage Factory. I'm really praising it, but which was a first hot dog fast food operation in South Africa as a chain. And we opened up the first store in Pinetown, just outside of Durban, and it was a miserable failure. And I went to him, and I remember.
Was it a store or stand?
No, store. It was a
store.
It was
Okay.
It was a store.
Okay.
And I mean, we had 12 different types of hot dogs. We had like a German hot dog would be a Frankfurter, English would be a banger, South African would be a Boerewors, and etc. You know, and so we created this. It was a beautiful product, but we were badly located, and I tried everything to keep that business open, and I couldn't make it make money, and finally came to the realization that I had failed, and after searching in my mind for who to blame, I kept coming back to me. You know, like it was it was because of this, because of that. It wasn't. It was because of me. So finally plucked up the courage to go to him and tell him that I had failed, and quite dramatically said to him that I'll pay him back for if it takes me the rest of my life, and got up and told me to sit down, and he said to me, "Did I back you or did I back the business?" And I said, "You backed me." So I said, "What would you do differently if you did it again?" And I told him I changed the menu, the venue, the pricing, and blah blah. I told him a whole bunch of things, and he said, "Right now the business has failed. If you walk out now, you have failed. I'm gonna back you again, but I'm not giving you money. I'm gonna put a whole team of people around you to support you." And I opened up the second one at the Pavilion Shopping Centre, and that was.
When was it?
Sure, in the 80s. This was still in the 80s, you know. So
It's a pavilion.
yeah, Pavilion in Westville.
In Westville, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, and then I sold that and went into vehicle security.
So sorry, that became a success. That shop.
Yes, and I sold that.
Right.
I worked out, I think, that I didn't want to be in fast food. It's a tough game. It's hard hours.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't. And for various reasons also that are a little bit more complex than to talk about, I went into the vehicle security industry. I was there for 7 years. And then I was marketing director of this business and a small little ad agency called Merritt & Sanders. They were my client. They were battling.
Right.
And I said to them, "Let me help you." And they said, "Okay, but we can't afford to pay you." So I said, "No problem." And I worked with them in the evenings and on the weekends, and turned that business around. And one day they came to me and they said to me at a Wimpy on a Saturday, "Welcome, partner." And they gave me a third of the equity. And then I moved up to Joburg.
Right.
Still with the vehicle security business, and then somebody here heard what I'd done and said, "How does it work?" So I said, "Well, if I turn you around, I get equity." You know, that was my model.
Okay.
And how much? And I said, "Well, 33%, because that's what I got. 100 divided by 3 was 33.3, and that's what I got in the last one, so that was my model." And she agreed, and I turned her around. I thought, "Oh, I'm good at this. I'm good at this." And 3 months before I got married, I was now 34 at the time, and 3 months before I got married, I resigned.
Okay.
And my shareholders' agreement precluded me from selling my shares for a couple of years. So I made a decision to become poor again. And I exited and started what was today Raizcorp. And Raizcorp today is a paid forward for what happened to me, that somebody backed me.
Right.
Somebody gave me a second chance,
Right.
and the way that they supported me, but was not through money, but through people, through a support structure, through people who believed we believe in the entrepreneurs. Yeah, and so it's 17 years later, and 10,000 businesses later, and we're currently supporting excess of 500 businesses. And we're involved in education now in schools, and we own schools, and so it's been a beautiful journey, and 17 years later I still can't wait to go to work every day. So which is I think a gift.
So you turned your mentoring experience and the turnaround strategies into an incubator. Am I right?
Yeah, in the beginning I didn't know what it was. You know, today everyone's very clever. You can't throw a stone without hitting somebody who calls himself an incubator. But in those days, I remember going to a barbecue, and somebody asking me what I did, and I was explaining. They said, "Oh, you run an incubator." I had never heard the term before. So I don't want to come across as this like, smart guy who came up with this incubator idea. It turned out I came up with an idea. It evolved by mistake, and then somebody labeled it an incubator. But we don't even call ourselves an incubator. We call ourselves a prosperator, because when you look at it, most of our businesses, particularly our equity businesses, are prosperous. They're millionaires. So when incubation connotes weakness and illness, it's not a label I want to put on our entrepreneurs. They're prosperous, so we are a prosperator.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, would you say there was a turning point in your career?
Yeah.
Things could have gone different, but you took it in a certain direction?
Many, not once. I think, and many times, I had the choice to go into the family business. I chose, I think, a much more difficult path. I had a choice to stay in a business that was relatively successful and growing. I made a choice to leave. I made a choice when I started Raizcorp not to get funding, to see if I could do it myself, and I had a choice to go for funding, and I didn't. And I seem to always make the tougher choice. You know, if you look at each sort of big juncture in my life, there's always an easy path and a hard path. And for some obscure reason, I choose the harder path. But I'm tired of that now. I want it a little bit easier now. You know, I'm 50 now, and but I think what I like about the harder path is that it's unknown and it's far more educational. It is it's tougher but more enriching. There's stuff to work out, things that certain people haven't done before, and I think deep down inside I'm a problem solver,
Right.
and so a hard path gives you much more opportunities to solve problems.
So what would you say is driving you today?
I think Raizcorp is a pay it forward for what happened to me. So what drives me is how I have a big vision of where I want this to go. I have a global vision, and what drives me is the dissonance between that vision and where I am. What drives me is the mission to turn around the failure rate of small businesses, because I think if you look at small businesses and the reasons why they fail, if you can change that statistic, you can fundamentally change the economics of a country. So my big dream is to win a Nobel Peace Prize, which that aspiration came only after seeing Muhammad Yunus win it, where somebody who built a model won it, as opposed to a Gandhi or a Mandela who were about peace, you know. Where when I saw Muhammad Yunus win it for a model that could change, you know, the destiny of people, that became my aspiration. And I was very fortunate last year to meet him. I had tea with Muhammad Yunus in Saudi Arabia, and it was one of the highlights of my life to sit with the man that, you know, inspired me to want to become a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
So would you say entrepreneurship is a key to the future?
100%. It's not the only key. I think that's very important, that it's not the only key. And very often people in the entrepreneurship space, you know, go around and say, this is the answer, this is the answer. It's not the answer, it's part of the answer, but it's certainly one of the keys to unlocking value in a country, at a country level, at a city level, and at an individual level. And it's about an ecosystem, it's about a mindset, it's about an enabling environment, and it's a complex solution, but it's something that's worth solving.
Absolutely. So Allon, what would you say does the future of leadership mean to you? If you look forward, if you look into the future, what do you see? What kind of leadership do you see will take this world into the future?
Yeah, I think that what's important for me to maybe state up front is I don't see myself as a leader. It's an important opening statement, because a lot of people, when I look at those are leaders. I don't see myself as a leader in the sense of that the way that other people sort of label leadership. My journey around leadership has been one of being me, being true to me. Every time I've tried in the past to try and be a leader, I've tried to be something else. And what I see in terms of the future of leadership is what I'm seeing now is a very, very distinct difference between inauthentic leadership and authentic leadership. And I think right now, just given the level of inauthentic leadership, I think there'll be a swing back to authentic leadership where the world is craving authentic leadership. And that is, I think, about being true to oneself and creating a context for a better future for the people you work with, work for. So I'm very much around a servant leadership model where I serve. I try and make it better for others and myself. It's not about me. There is a part of it that serves me, both at an ego level and at a financial level and at a spiritual level and at an intellectual level. I'm served by it as well. But it is not just all about that. It's I think a good balance between the two.
So what have you learned from your journey that is really important for future leaders? If there's one skill, maybe.
I think it's good to understand how other leaders operate, but don't try and emulate anything that doesn't resonate. So I used the word servant leadership. It's a nice label, but for one person who is in inverted commas a servant leader and another person, they might deliver that in a different way. So I think what I see is in authentic leadership is not to try and be somebody else. Understand what types of leadership there are, and always understand that you're on a journey. Because I think my early realization around this leadership thing is that it's not an apex. You don't become a leader and then you're a leader. It's a constant journey, evolving, and you're maturing. You're getting more experienced. Your context changes, and your leadership style needs to change accordingly. So I see leadership as a journey. It's not an end point at all.
Now, when you speak to entrepreneurs, what do you advise them they should focus on to future-proof their career and maybe future-proof their business?
I spoke earlier about the fact that that leadership is a journey, and I very, very strongly believe that because there's so much dynamism in the world, that it's very dynamic, things are changing constantly, that you've got to keep assessing your relationship with both the external world, what's happening, both from a technology point of view, from a political point of view, from an economic point of view, how those affect you in your career, and how you need to keep adapting in order to remain relevant. I find that people who do not remain relevant, who reach a pinnacle in their life, wherever that might be, and then stop there, are not future-proofed. They become irrelevant. So to be relevant, I think it's about constantly evolving according to both what's happening externally and internally in the organization you work with, because that too has its own dynamism. It has different leadership, different structures, different trends, and you have to keep adapting to both the inside world and the outside world.
Now, looking at technology, Allon, which do you think will be the key, or are the key technologies that will be driving leadership in the future?
Sure, that question I think is a hard one, because we can't see around corners, and at the rate at which technology is changing, by the time we even transmit this podcast, it might already be irrelevant.
Sure.
But I think the connectivity, from a leadership point of view, the connectivity technologies, such as the social media platforms, and particularly the ones that relate to business, like LinkedIn, etc., are important platforms and technologies to understand the way that media is changing, because at some point there's an internal message, at some point there's an external message, and understanding how media is changing from a technology point of view is also very important. So yeah, it's understand. I think communication technology. I think that's the one from a leadership point of view that's important. From a relevance point of view, all technology is important.
Sure. Now, when it comes to social media, which social media platform would you suggest entrepreneurs, future leaders should adopt, should master, should apply?
You know, once again, I have to make an embarrassing exposure here that only last year I gave up my Filofax. Okay, so I'm still that guy who likes to write because I remember when I write.
Sure.
So I have to say there's a caveat before I give the answer. I think Twitter for me is a very important, both as an outward expression and every morning I read.
Yeah.
The first thing I do is I follow a whole bunch of interests that are important to me, and I read and I glean multiple inputs from that. So Twitter for me is an important one. I use LinkedIn quite a bit, which is an important one for me to find staff, for me to transmit. So I use any social media where it's a two-way, and I use it very deliberately as an input and an output. It's not just that I'm a passive user, I'm a deliberate user.
Okay, great. Now, can you share maybe a success story or two of your entrepreneurs that have gone through your Prosperator and built up a remarkable business and become leaders in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a story that I particularly like because it's so different. We had a company come here, a company called Ruby Blue. It was two partners, and they were selling computers in their language, box droppers.
Right.
And then they moved into networking, and unfortunately, one of the partners got killed in a car accident, and the techie became the new CEO, and which was a huge leadership moment for him, that he had to reinvent himself, and we were supportive in his reinvention, and that became quite thematic in their journey, that reinvention. And the thing I respect most about him is that his ability to do that and be self-reflective in that, and then through also an opportunity presented around software, and today they run a software business, which is a funeral home policy management software, which has over 5 million policies running through its software right now. It is across SADC. It's growing exponentially. It has got 25 million additional lives, so there's 30 million lives running that are running on the software. And that product is expanding to other arenas. So from why that story is I think is a great leadership story is because it's a journey of change, which is what I think leadership is. It's a journey of adaptation, which I think leadership is. And you see somebody who was selling computers now running a software business, which one might say there is a relationship, but it's a very, very thin relationship between the two, and very successfully so. And now and is on that journey of making sure they keep adapting to what's going out there. So it's a success story, but for me, the success story is about change. It's about an acceptance and embracing of change.
And what is the name of the business?
Ruby Blue.
Ruby Blue.
Yeah.
Ruby Blue, and the founder?
The founder, or the CEO now is a guy called Chris Ogden, Ogden, Ogden.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're touching 30 million
lives.
lives.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Now, when I came to your building this morning, you have a number of, I would say, role models for innovation and entrepreneurship on your wall outside. Steve Jobs, Oprah, and others. What are the role models that you recommend your entrepreneurs to look at and maybe learn from?
I think what's important is, once again, the resonance with your journey. So I was very fortunate, and my mentor from 27 years ago is still my mentor today. It's the same man.
The Durban millionaire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Non-millionaire, billionaire. And his role in my life has been incredibly instructive. But my advice to other people is to find a mentor that you resonate with. My particular style of mentorship is a tough mentorship. So us as entrepreneurs, we tend to delude ourselves. I'd use another word if this wasn't published, but delude ourselves about how wonderful things are. We need somebody to keep us on the straight and narrow, to reflect back to us a different truth. I like tough mentorship. I like the brutality of it, in the sense that like, look here, you're not seeing this. Some people might not, and I've learned this the hard way, because I've become that type of mentor. I'm very straight, very direct, and I've got no time for the fuzzy stuff. I go straight in and I say it as I see it. For some people that resonates, and some people it just doesn't. They want a more politically correct, a softer approach. So my advice to any entrepreneur, from a role model point of view, from a mentor point of view, is to find a style that suits you first, and then the type of mentor that will a long-term mentor. So I have two types of mentors. I have this individual who is a big global thinker, and I can discuss big ideas.
Right.
But then I have specific mentors who are maybe somebody who's been very operational in a business, and I go to that individual. It's also a very prominent South African businessman who built a business from scratch, and with that individual I spend more time talking about the nuances, the subtleties. And then I've got another mentor who I deal with my personal journey, and my personal struggles around when I'm feeling out of my depths, my insecurities, my weaknesses, and how to reframe them through my journey. So I don't have my model of role model mentorship is to find people that resonate and give me the style of mentorship that I like, but more importantly the types that I need, and then I use that as and when I require.
Okay. So where can people follow you? Where can they connect with you?
Twitter, Allon Raiz, ALLONRAIZ. I'm on there, and I tweet quite, not too much, but I tweet quite a bit. The Raizcorp website, which is www.raizcorp.com. I have on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and there I have. I also have a blog called Blue Heart Warrior, which is a blog. You can look that up. And I write around. I use it as a form of expression, where it's a little bit off center, where I can't publish those in sort of normal magazines. It's a little bit. I have. It's a weird approach to things, so it's a form of expression. So
why is it Blue Heart?
Well, a term Blue Heart is a term that we call for entrepreneurs who have Blue Heart. That what we call Blue Heart, that ability to stand up again and again and again, and that fighting spirit. We call them Blue Hearts in Raizcorp. So it's called Blue Heart Warrior, as in the entrepreneurial warrior.
Right.
Yeah. And I see ourselves as warriors. We're out there every day is some days you're winning the battle, some days you've got lots of blood on you, and you've got a couple of stab wounds, and the next day you have to get up again and fight again and fight again, and my experience is that it doesn't end. 17 years in, it's just different types of problems. The problems manifest in different ways, in different sizes, and different faces and structures. But there's always something to solve and something
Right.
to win, and I think for as long as there is a dissonance between what you see in your head and where you are, you fight to get it.
And I believe you've written a number of books.
Yes, I've written 2 books. I've written a book called Lose the Business Plan, and I've written a second book called What to Do When You Want to Give Up.
And I believe you're writing your 3rd book.
Yes, I'm writing a 3rd book. I'm actually writing 2 books at the same time. One I'm further along the line than the other. The one is called Am I Really an Entrepreneur? Which is that they question a lot of entrepreneurs. Well, people come to me and ask, I don't know if I am or not. So I've got a point of view around that. And then I'm writing a kids book for children who are thinking about the entrepreneurship journey.
So, Allon, last but not least, is there one thing that you would like our listeners to take away and implement in their lives, in their career, in their leadership?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for me, for leaders, for individuals, is self-reflection in a deeply critical way, and then release. And what I mean by that is that it's about looking at yourself in a critical way. In other words, where we all have a veneer that we present to the world, but deep, we know who we are, and it's about looking at that individual and say, how can that individual improve? So there's a level of self-reflection, self-flagellation to some extent, but then it's important to release and not carry on, and let yourself, give yourself the space to grow. So it's not that is de facto who you are. You then have a space to grow beyond that. So you reflect, you look at your weakness, you look at your growth opportunities, and then go do something about it.
Well, Allon, thank you so much for your time. You are an inspiration, and I hope that many, many more millions of entrepreneurs will take a leaf from your book, from your books, and wish you well, and hope to see you one day on the Nobel Prize podium.
Thank you. Thanks so much.